Okay, WPAT Radio, Romeo Radio, smack dab in the heart of New York City. We have John Hansen joining us from Florida. And John Hansen is natural Mr. Olympia. He's also a heck of a writer, and he has a wonderful podcast. And I'm sure many things that I'm not mentioning, but I'm not with John day to day. I'm up here in New Jersey, and he's down there in paradise. So
yeah, paradise after the hurricanes leave.
how'd you manage through all that terrible stuff?
I had some flooding in the garage for the first one, Hurricane Helene, because we got all that water surge. But the second one actually wasn't too bad. I was in Vegas for the Mr. Olympia, so I missed it. But from what I hear, we just got a lot of high winds, but no flooding, no power loss. So got kind of lucky. I think it kind of missed Tampa, went a little below in Sarasota. So Tampa didn't get the brunt of it this time for that second hurricane.
Well, thank goodness. And North Carolina got a terrible.
Oh, that was terrible. Yeah.
I have a friend down there who told me he escaped, so I was glad about that.
Yeah.
If you're in the eye of the storm, so to speak, boy, oh boy, are you in trouble.
Yeah.
But, we got by it, and we were unscathed over here. We didn't, no,
right.
Not even any rain, nothing. But that's another story for another day. But let's talk about training. And I thought the nuts and bolts of training, and because we're on the radio and as well as the YouTube channel, we don't really have the visual. So we really want to explain things maybe a little deeper than we would ordinarily. So let's talk about, first, it comes to mind, recuperation. Everybody thinks more is better. If I can go to the gym 4 times, why not 5? Why not 6? Why not every day? If I go every single day, 2 times a day, I can make twice the progress. If I eat 300 grams of protein instead of the 200 grams of protein, I could do better. Not necessarily the case, right?
Right. Or my favorite is I'm going to train my abs every day in order to get the abs to go out.
Well, I'm guilty of that because I like to train abs. And I'm down on the floor. My wife says, "What are you doing down there?" I said, "I'm doing my abs, honey." And that's what I'm doing. I've always trained abs, maybe 6 days a week, because my best feature was where the abs were ridiculous, and that's genetic. Because nothing special, John. I didn't hang from a rooftop with leg raises. Nothing really special other than basic stuff. But I happen to have the genetics to have incredible abs. Not so much everything else, but the abs are always incredible. Right. And so I really got into it. But you don't have to train abs every day. That's a prime example.
Yeah, a lot of people think they're going to get rid of the fat by training their abs, which, of course, it's all diet. Diet is the only thing that's going to get rid of the fat. So you'll have the abs underneath the fat, but you won't be able to see the abs unless you diet and get rid of the fat. So training your abs every day isn't going to speed up the process.
Right. And I always thought that a strong core was always the key to a great physique, but the modern day bodybuilder doesn't seem to feel that way.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, a lot of people are doing more isolation movements now.
And to me, I see these guys that go into these contests. What do you call those? With the shorts. You tell me, John. The ones those are the classic physiques of the 70s and the 80s. And when on the Olympia stage, these are humongous people that have, not really wasp-shaped waists, do they?
Right.
Don't you prefer the old-fashioned physique, or maybe?
Oh yeah, I love the physiques from the 70s and 80s. Those are my favorite bodybuilders. So I mean, they've definitely gotten bigger over the last 30 years for sure, 30, 40 years. Since the 90s, I think the bodybuilders have really gotten a lot bigger.
And you think it's for the better or for the worse?
Well, a big part of bodybuilding, I think, is, the symmetry and the beauty of the physique. And now with the drugs that are available, like growth hormone, synthetic growth hormone, and insulin in particular, along with the steroids, that's allowed these guys to get bigger than ever before. And they're putting on so much size, sometimes they lose the symmetry, and it doesn't match their structure because they're putting on so much muscle mass that they have more muscle than their structure can accommodate. And they lose the symmetry. They lose the smaller waist. many times, even though they are coming in incredible condition, they're coming in super ripped, even with all that muscle mass. But overall, I think sometimes it's just too much muscle for their frame. And so it all depends on, their height and their frame and everything. But I remember like Arnold in his prime, I've got, a ton of old bodybuilding magazines, and I've got this one magazine where Arnold said his perfect weight was 235, and he was, 6'1", and he could have probably been bigger than that, but he realized that if he was bigger than that, it would have ruined the symmetry and the shape of his physique, and his waist would have probably gotten bigger. And, so he was aware of that even at that time. That's 50 years ago. So that's how important it was back then, was the small waist, the vacuum. And, now it's more about just putting on the most muscle mass as you can, no matter what your height is, no matter what your structure is, and then just getting it really ripped and hard and losing all the body fat without any consideration, I think, for the symmetry or the shape of the physique. And I think that's where a lot of the guys don't look as good to me as the guys, from the 70s or 80s do.
I mean, those guys were just incredible. But recuperation, again,
Yeah.
is very, very crucial. And how big a part does it play in a regimen? I mean, is this everything? If you get into the gym too soon, are you really detracting from your gains, or is that how much it means?
Yeah, well, I think with recuperation, a lot of it depends on your age, because when you're younger, your ligaments and tendons can recuperate a lot faster. When you get older and you start, especially if you're training pretty heavy, your ligaments and tendons will feel it along with the muscles. So you may not be able to train a body part, a muscle group as often as you could if you were younger. But a lot of it really all depends on the intensity of the training. I see a lot of people in the gym and they're just casual weightlifters, and they're just lifting, 10 to 12 reps with moderate weights. They're not training so hard where they're tearing down the muscle tissue or even causing a lot of stress to the tendons. So they could probably train a muscle group more often. They might be able to train a muscle group 2, maybe even 3 times a week. So like if you took a beginner, someone who never trained before, the best routine for a beginner would be to do just like one exercise for each muscle group. So let's say we have, 12 muscle groups in the body. If you did 12 exercises, one for each muscle group, you did 3 sets of 10 reps with the weights. That's not a lot for each. That's not a lot of damage that you're imposing on that muscle. So you could probably train it 48 hours later, like 2 days later. You could probably train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But as you start adding exercises, you start getting stronger, you start putting more stress on the muscle, then the muscle needs more recuperation. So if you went to like a second routine, like an intermediate, would be to train your body over 2 days, maybe train your upper body muscles one day, your lower body the next. Then you would have to cut down, because now you're adding more exercises. Instead of doing one exercise per body part, now you're doing 2 or 3. So instead of just doing like the bench press for the chest, now you're doing bench press, incline press, and you're doing flies. So now you're doing 3 exercises. So now the muscle needs more recuperation. So you might have to wait like a couple more days to train it again, maybe train it Monday, Thursday, something like that. And then if you're training really hard, you get more advanced, you're training like 5 years or more, and now you're using a good amount of weight to train the muscle, and you're training it very hard, you're training it to failure. You might need up to a week to recuperate. But I'll tell you, Ralph, what I've been doing with my training, and I've just been doing this over the last year, because before the last year, I was training each muscle group once a week. I was splitting my body parts up over 4 days. I would do chest and triceps, then I would do legs, I would take a day off, and then I would do shoulders and calves, and I would do back and biceps, training 4 days a week out of 7, and I would wait a week before I trained that muscle group again. But what I've been doing lately is, for some of the body parts, not every one, but I'll add a second workout. So for legs, if I do them on Tuesday, I'll do them again on Saturday, like 4 days later. But my second leg workout isn't quite as heavy. It's not really as heavy or as hard. It's a little bit lighter, more moderate, but I am training the muscle. And I'm finding there's some benefits to that, to training the muscle more frequently. You just have to do it smart and not overtrain the muscle. Now, if I did 2 workouts a week for my legs that were really heavy and really hard, I think that would be too much. And I think eventually the joints would start to feel it. My knees would start to feel it, the tendons, maybe my lower back. So I have to be smart about it and do one workout that's heavy and hard, The second workout is more moderate, but that second workout is still training the muscle. And I also do the same thing with my chest and triceps, and I do calves twice a week as well. So I think if you can train a muscle more frequently, as long as you can get the recuperation for the tendons and the ligaments, I think that muscle will benefit and it will grow more and it might even get stronger. So there is some benefit. You know, there's a lot of scientific studies that say if you can train the muscle more frequently, it's better. You know, 2 times a week might be better than 1 time a week. Some people even say 3 times a week is better than 2 times a week. But you have to take it individually based on your experience and your age, and you have to make sure that the joints and the tendons are recuperating as well as the muscles. You know, and that's why I said when we're younger, we recuperate so much faster. We don't have those tendon problems. We don't have the ligament problems. So, you know, I remember when I was younger, I was training twice a week for each muscle group, training very heavy, very hard, 6 to 8 reps, very heavy every single workout. And I never had a problem with anything hurting, but I was in my 20s, you know, so it becomes different as you get older.
But what I never knew was when I was fully recovered. I didn't gauge, couldn't gauge. I would wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and sometimes when I had a hard workout the day before, even 2 days before, I looked small. I looked smaller, like I haven't yet filled out yet. This is just this is a crude examination by me at 6 o'clock in the morning in the bathroom. You know, how do you know when you're fully recovered, when you can hit that muscle group again?
Well, a lot of that, like what you mentioned, I think is also nutrition. So you've got to make sure you're getting enough of the proper nutrients. Protein obviously is going to help rebuild muscle tissue, but the carbohydrates and the fats, that will also help with recuperation. I've never been a big believer in low carbs. My body, because I have a faster metabolism, or I had a faster metabolism, but my body always responded a little bit more to more carbs. Now, when I say carbs, I'm talking more complex carbs, not sugars, but more foods like, you know, oatmeal, sweet potatoes, brown rice, things like that. And if you eat in more carbohydrates, I think that helps the muscle recuperate faster because it restores the glycogen into the muscle. And so that's a big part of it. So making sure you're eating the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of calories really plays a big part in recuperation. And then, you know, your goals as far as your nutrition all depend on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get leaner, if you're trying to get bigger, you know, then you have to adjust those macros and those calories for, you know, for your goals.
Well, I'm 64. I train every other day,
Okay.
the whole body. And if I need another day, you know, I do cardio almost every day. I'll run every day. It's not for prime muscle development because I know I can get maybe bigger, but I wouldn't be as cardiovascularly fit. So I kind of substitute one for the other or exchange one for the other because I think at my age, you know, health is number one priority and what I appear to be is number two, you know? So you know, that's the way I train right now. But I know I'm overtraining many times, but it feels good, John, just to work the muscle and you get that mind muscle connection more so if you just train. You know, I know so many people, they won't go into the gym unless they're fully recovered, maybe 2, 3 days before, after a heavy workout. It's like heresy to go into the gym again. I could never be that way. I have to go in there psychologically. It helps me. Doesn't it help you to get in there more frequently than less?
Yeah, I love training. So, I mean, the hardest days for me are my days off, you know, so I get psyched up and I love going to the gym. It's like the highlight of my day. So yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Train by yourself?
No, I usually have a partner. I have a couple guys I train with in case one can't make it, then I got another one, you know, so I always find the workouts are better with a partner.
You still doing cardio?
Yeah, I'm doing cardio. I'm still trying to get a little bit leaner now. So I'm doing cardio 4 or 5 times a week.
What do you think about cardio the way we used to do cardio? You know, obsessed with cardio. You want to take, you know, a session in the morning, session at night, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've never gone to that extreme. I hate doing cardio, but
What kind of cardio do you do?
usually just walking. I'll either walk or I'll do the treadmill. I find that's, you know, it's just steady state cardio. It's nothing super intense, but it helps to, you know, burn off the body fat and get a little more, you know, calorie burning and stuff in addition to the dieting. But I've never gone like twice a week like some people do.
How long do you stay in the gym? One stint in the gym. How long is your session?
I would say typically about an hour and a half. Yeah.
And you're working quickly?
I wouldn't say quickly, not between sets. I mean, I'm training intense, so I wait long enough until I'm ready to do the next set. I don't want to take a shorter rest period and then have that compromise the set in some way, and feel like, oh, I wasn't ready for that yet. When I'm training heavy, and I pretty much train heavy in everything I do, and heavy means, anywhere from 6 reps to 10 reps, but it's, heavy weight where it's almost to failure. Um, I have to get psyched up for every set. So like, let's say I'm doing barbell rows and I'm using a pretty good amount of weight. I'm trying to get 3 sets of 7. I'm not going to just rest for a minute. I'm going to rest for maybe 3 minutes or more. I don't even really time it. I don't even know how long it is. I just wait until I feel like I'm physically and mentally ready, to do the set. And then when I'm ready, I'll do it. So a lot of people will ask me that, like, how long do you take between sets? But I never time it, never. I just wait until I'm ready. But the whole idea is just to train the muscle as hard as possible.
Superset, or do you stay within the muscle group you're training at the moment?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, I would say almost always straight sets, never supersets.
Straight sets. Okay. And what always you use a lot of forced reps, a lot of negatives. Do you have a partner getting the weight up for you, then you fight the resistance on the way down? Do you do that type of work?
No, I don't go that hard. I train hard within the set, but I don't go beyond the set. I don't go beyond failure, like with the negatives or the forced reps. But the partner's there just to help, watch me, give me a little confidence. Sometimes I don't even need them. Most of the time I don't need them, but they're there just to maybe do like one forced rep at the end or something. It's just more as a safety thing, just to get a little more psyched up. But I usually just I make my workouts progressive. So every week they get a little heavier. So let's say, for example, I'm doing barbell rows and I'm using 205 pounds for 3 sets of 8. Those are my working sets. And then the next week I'll go up to 215 pounds and do 3 sets of 7. The third week I'll go up into 225 and I'll do 3 sets of 6. When I go to the fourth week, I'll go to the weight I used on the second week, which was 215. And instead of doing 7 reps, I'll do 8 reps. So I'll do 215 for 8. Then I'll do 225 for 7, and then I'll go to 235 for 6. So that's 6 weeks where the weight is going up and the intensity is going up because it's progressive. After 6 weeks of that, my body feels kind of worn out and maybe even a little beat up because I'm doing this for all the body parts and all the exercises. So after 6 weeks of progressively going harder, slowly going up, then I'll do a deload week. The deload week is where I'll use like 50 or 60% of my normal weight. And then I'll just do like sets of 10 to 12 reps. And I'll do that for a whole week just to give my body and my mind a break. Then I'll come back and I'll do another cycle. Now I might use the same exercises or I might switch up the exercises, but then I'll go up again, and I'll do another cycle. So I actually have a book called MP6 Workout, and this is a system I developed probably about 10 years ago. And as I got a little bit older, instead of like training to failure and training super hard every workout, like you said, with the forced reps and everything, that's how I trained when I was younger. Then I found as I got a little bit older, sometimes I would get hurt if I trained like that. I was pushing it too hard. So I figured, well, I'll just stay within my limits, but I'll still make it harder by adding progression each week. But you can't continually do that. You can't go up for like a whole year. Obviously your body's not a machine. So that's why I only do it for 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, I kind of feel physically and mentally a little burned out. So then I'll take a step down, do the deload. Then I go up again and I'll do it again. So like the first cycle, that 6-week cycle, if I'm using between 6 and 8 reps, then what I'll do when I go to the next cycle is I'll change the rep scheme. So instead of doing 6 to 8 reps, now I'll do 8 to 10 reps, but I'll do it based on the weight that I used on my first cycle. So I'll take that weight and adjust that, and then I'll go 8 to 10 reps. But that will also be progressive over 6 weeks. So this way I'm constantly pushing, and trying to add muscle, which gets harder, the longer you've been doing it. I've been training since the 70s, so I've been training a long time. But I'm still, even at my age, I'm still pushing it, trying to add muscle and get leaner.
And the fact is, all these years, you still enjoy, you seem to more than ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Many people get burned out. They don't really enjoy it. I mean, I know so many people, I remember seeing him 20 years ago, beautiful physique, and now they're just giving up. And you've got to find a way, folks. This is John Hansen. and regimented as can be. And if you tune in to see the times when he had the camera in the gym and you saw him going through his workout, he's handling some serious poundage. And we're not talking about a spring chicken, no offense anymore. You know, the guy's not 30 anymore. I'm
Yeah.
64. I'm 64. I think you're 62.
One.
61. Okay. And you know, that's a rare find. And you're a guy who has a great diet and great patterns. You live a healthy lifestyle. What's the food intake these days?
Right now, like I said, I'm dieting, trying to get leaner. So I'm at like around 2,300 calories, sometimes 22. So my protein is usually around 220 grams of protein a day. And then my carbs, what I've been doing lately, because I'm getting at that point now in my diet where I'm getting really lean, but I'm trying to lose that last little bit off the waist, you know, that last inch, which my body's really resisting. So what I found, what I've been trying to do is kind of like a little bit of carb cycling, going down to 200 grams of carbs for a couple days, maybe 2 days. And then I'll go up to like 250, which is what I was normally dieting on. And then I'll go down again to 200 and then go up to 250 on the third day. And then my fats are usually around 50 grams, which I don't really want to bring them lower than that because you need some kind of fats for your hormone health. So yeah, it's around 2,200, 2,300. I'm really strict with it. Obviously, I weighing my food, writing everything down, writing my macros, kind of figuring out even a little bit beforehand. So I hit the macros as close as possible. And I just when I was out in Vegas for the Mr. Olympia, so I made sure I got a place out there where it had a full kitchen, you know, a refrigerator, stove, microwave, sink, everything. So I brought a lot of my food with me, packaged it up. I knew exactly, like I weighed it beforehand. So I had it all my protein, a lot of my carbohydrate foods. And then I went to the store when I got there and bought whatever I didn't have. So I felt like I was at home. And I brought my tape measure. I was measuring my waist every day and my waist didn't go up at all. So I was on target. And that's important. I mean, you can do it if you take those precautions. I work with a lot of clients and a lot of them will travel with their job and they'll tell me, I had to go away for work for 3 days and my diet was totally off. And I went back up on my waist went up a half an inch, you know. So you can do it, but it takes work. You got to get like a place where you can fix your food. That helps out a lot. But if you bring your food with you and you eat ahead of time, because if you just eat at restaurants and I mean, obviously, inevitably, it's going to go off track, you know. And then I know with me, like once I go off one meal, usually the whole day is shot. So I got to stay strict all the time. But
Yeah,
if you really
appetite.
supporting it, you can watch it.
Do you have a crazy appetite? Do you want more food? Want more food? You know, I mean, you train hard. It does bring on a heavy appetite.
Yeah. You know what? I find that because I've done this so many times in my life now, when you start the diet, that's the hardest part because you're used to eating whatever you want. And then when you start restricting it, then you really do get some cravings. But now I've been doing this now for a few months. So I think I started in June. So now that I'm doing it for this long, I'm getting close to the goal. So now I'm just so focused on it, I really don't get cravings, you know. Plus, it really helps to count those macros, you know, count when you start counting it, you're like, oh, I can't go over, you know, I can't eat like 5 more rice cakes. Like, you know, I'm almost at my carbohydrate limit, you know. So once you're really in track of that, then you don't do it.
By the way, this man got up before, and I happened to see the vascularity in the arm. It's ridiculous. But you shouldn't be like that at 61 years old.
Right.
There's something wrong here. But you know, that's you know, genetics play such a big part. People say, you know, I don't have the genetics for that sport. You can always make good with what you have. You can
Yeah.
be, you know, disciplined. Very few people have your discipline. That I see that as the major problem. But now I'm
I
thinking,
got to tell you a funny story, Ralph. I went to a Halloween party last week out here in Tampa.
yeah,
So I didn't know what to do, you know, what to be. So I said, well, I'll be Wolverine. I'll be Hugh Jackman Wolverine. But I didn't want to get the full yellow suit, you know, the padded yellow suit because it was like $200. I'm like, I'm just going to go cheap. So in one of his movies, he was wearing jeans with a gray tank top. So I said, I'll just do that. And then I bought some fake claws. But I wanted to get the you know, I think he had a beard and a goatee, and then he had the sideburns. I couldn't. I got the beard and it wouldn't work. It wasn't double sided, so I couldn't put it on. And then I couldn't find the goatee or the goatee. So I go, this is going to be the cheapest costume. I don't even want to go. I'm going to be laughed at. when I get there, people were freaking out. They're like, "That's a great Wolverine," on the because they said I looked like a superhero. And but the funny thing was, they thought my shoulders were part of the costume.
But they were your shoulders.
They thought it was part of. They thought it was like pads, and people
They,
kept touching them. I thought that was hilarious. Like people don't think you could have real muscles. They thought it was part of the costume.
well, Superman in the old days, George Reeves used to have a padded outfit.
Right, right.
And it was so weird back then. A big, thick waist. He'd stand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're talking about 1968 or
I
even
remember.
before that. But I used to live right near Hugh Jackman, and I'm trying to get him on my program. He's hard to get. He's very much in demand right now.
Oh
Very
yeah,
now. Here's a guy that when you mentioned him, you saw him, and he was just a regular guy, tall. He's a big guy, naturally.
yeah,
And then he went on some sort of, he got the trainer. He hit the gym like crazy for his next film. The
yeah,
transformation, this is maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. The transformation was ridiculous.
yeah,
It looked
yeah.
like two different people. And I wondered, what is he? Everybody wondered, what is he doing? Testosterone, what is he doing? But I know he has the same mindset as you have. And he was going to get the way he wanted to get, regardless. He wasn't going to be stopped. And man,
Right.
he formed his body beautifully. He didn't look anything like you, but he still, the camera's a strange thing. It plays tricks on you, but he wasn't as ripped and defined as you are, but he had a beautiful physique. And then I saw him again, John, back to normal.
Yeah, he goes right, right. A lot of those guys are like that, right?
But we don't do that. We stay in shape
Yeah.
all year round, and that's the difference.
He looked good in that Wolverine Deadpool movie, though. I think he's 55 now. He looks really good.
He's a song and dance man. He did all the
Yeah, yeah.
musicals. This guy's an all-around talent, but I don't want the whole thing to be about Hugh Jackman. But we'll talk about Hugh Jackman another time. But he's just tremendous. But John Hansen again with me, WPAT right here, New York City, Romeo Radio. We have John on for once in a while, when he's good enough to join me. Okay, I'm thinking about the myths, the things that you see on the internet. I talked about it briefly the last time we got together. What are things that people swear that you have to do in order to succeed at this that you don't believe in? Anything?
What are the myths you have to do?
One of the myths that others say that, man, if you're not, a carnivore and you don't cut those carbs the way you're supposed to cut those carbs, there's no way, if you don't do this amount of these supplements and this kind of thing. What are some of the myths that you never engaged in, if any, that you saw everybody around you doing and you wondered why? Anything?
Yeah, I would say, when I work with clients, I ask them what they're doing now when I first meet them. And I ask them, what are you doing now? What kind of diet are you following? And then are you getting any results from that? What I find is a lot of them are really under eating. When they want to lose weight, they eat, a lot of people will eat a lot of protein because they figure, they hear protein is important for muscle growth. And if they're lifting weights, they want to eat a lot of protein. But then they eat really low carbohydrates. And a lot of them will eat really high fats. So they don't really seem to know what they're doing as far as the macros go. And overall, I think their calories are just way too low. And when you eat, when your calories are that low, your body kind of goes into starvation mode and it starts to actually hold on to fat. And it also slows down your metabolism. So what you have to do, and what I do as a coach, is I try to give them enough macros where they're getting plenty of protein, but not too much. But they're also getting carbohydrates for their energy, and they're getting enough fats to keep their hormones healthy. But it's just below what they need to maintain their weight. And if I get it wrong and they just keep maintaining their weight, because we do check-ins all the time, then I'll just lower it a little bit. But you try to give them the maximum amount of nutrients and calories that they can sustain while still losing weight, and they're just slowly losing the weight. So that's one thing. I guess another thing would probably be the cardio. A lot of people are recording their steps now, and they'll just try to do a lot of cardio, a lot of steps, and they think that this is one. They think calories in, calories out. So they think, well, I'm recording. I have this, Fitbit or whatever, and I'm recording how many calories I'm burning, and I'm only taking in this many calories. Why am I not losing weight? But it's not that simple. It's not a simple equation of calories in, calories out. It's more complicated than that, especially if you're trying to change the way your body looks and you're trying to build muscle. You've got to eat the right amount of muscle, the right amount of nutrients to build the muscle. But also the weight training itself, even though it burns sugar for energy and it's not burning fat for energy like cardio, it does increase your metabolic rate. It increases your metabolism in a way, because it's so intense, it increases your metabolism in a way that cardio never can. So the weight training itself, burning off that glycogen that's stored in the muscles, then restoring that glycogen back through your diet, that whole process is going to upgrade your metabolism and burn more body fat and burn more energy and burn more calories. So all of it together is very important. It's just a slow process of losing fat while you're building muscle, or at least holding on to the muscle you have. It's not as simple as calories in, calories out, you know.
Does it matter when you eat? Do those late night calories mean more than if you ate the same amount of food at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Not theoretically, but what I always try to do with my training and diet, and what I tell my clients to do, is eat a little bit more carbohydrates in the morning and around your workouts. And then as the day goes on, when you don't need the carbohydrates, when you're kind of winding down, then you can cut back. Like typically my last meal will just be protein, maybe just some egg whites or a couple whole eggs with the egg whites. And then I won't eat the carbohydrates at night. But theoretically, like I said, it really shouldn't matter, you know, because it's really all about the amount of calories you're taking in and the amount of macros you're taking in. So if you are eating some carbohydrates at night, it really shouldn't matter, because your body's still storing it the same. You know what I mean?
What about eggs? You mentioned eggs. Are they a good food, a bad food? What's the skinny on eggs these days?
I think it's a great food. Even whole eggs are great. You know, they have lecithin, they have a lot of vitamins and minerals. There's more fat, obviously, in a whole egg, but I combine whole eggs and egg whites, and I love eggs. You know, some people don't like the taste of them, or some people are allergic to them, but I do. I love them. I think they're a complete protein food, obviously. So I always still have them for in morning, you know, for breakfast, and I usually have them sometimes at night too for my last meal. And then, like I said, I'll just, depending on what my macros are, what I need, I'll combine like the whole eggs with I won't eat like 6 whole eggs, because that would be too much fat for what I'm trying to eat for the day. But I might have like two whole eggs, and then like 5 or 6 or 7 egg whites, you know, depending on what I need as far as my macros.
Besides the eggs, what are the other fat sources?
Salmon is really good. Salmon has the omega-3 fatty acids. And then a lot of the protein, I try to switch up my protein food, so I'm not eating just chicken 6 times a day. So I'll have like lean ground beef, which has some fat in it. I'll have lean ground turkey, which has fat in it. Even ground chicken has fat in it. And then the salmon, and yeah, usually the eggs. And then you're getting a little bit of fat throughout the day from other foods. So at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to hit that 50 grams.
Avocados, olive oil,
Yeah,
yep.
that's all good stuff too. Yeah, avocados are good. Those olive oil, those are monosaturated fats, so they're very healthy for you as well.
Supplements. Anything, any suggestions for somebody training hard? What should he have or she have?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the vitamins and minerals I take, I'll take a multivitamin and mineral. I'll take extra vitamin C. I'll take extra zinc, vitamin D3. But as far as training supplements, creatine is always good. It's a proven supplement that's been around since the 90s. It definitely helps with your training. Branched chain aminos, those are the 3 amino acids that your body burns for energy while you're working out. So it's good to supplement with those. I'll even take a carbohydrate powder before my workout and after my workout. I'll take a little bit of it, not a lot, not a ton of it, but just enough to, like, I drink that during my workout. And then after my workout with the carbohydrate powder, I'll take some easy to digest protein, like a whey protein isolate. So then I'm getting the whey protein with the carbohydrate powder afterwards, and I'll combine the creatine with that drink as well. So yeah, those are some of the supplements that are really good as far as your training goes.
5 grams creatine.
Yeah, I'll probably take like 10 after the workout, 2 scoops. Yeah.
And did you notice, like I did, the difference with definition with creatine or as opposed to without? Did you notice that on creatine after a period of time, it's not, you don't have that real definition as before? Did you notice that?
No, I
Okay.
never really experienced any water retention from it. I know some people think that but really with the creatine, you shouldn't retain any water because the creatine should be going inside the muscle cell. It shouldn't be like under the skin over the muscle. So it does pull the water in, but the water should go into the muscle cell. So that's why it
What do
should
you
make the
think is
muscles whole.
yeah, what do you think is happening to me when I take the creatine? My body changes drastically. I don't gain weight, but I look big. Like if I had just covered, I look a lot larger.
Wow,
But
that's good.
there's no doubt. It's the one thing that I found, frankly, John, many things never worked for me. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm not a drug taker, so I've never gone that route.
yeah,
But creatine, I've seen differences. It feels good. I can train more often. It feels, but
yeah.
I actually I get more size with the creatine, and my definition goes south. But you know, and normally I have a ton of definition with very little size when I'm off creatine. So I don't know, and I take 5 grams a day.
Yeah, which is the normal amount. Yeah.
Right, and that's the right. And so, do you have any idea? Because it doesn't work on you that way, apparently, right?
I didn't notice like that much of a change as much as you did, but I mean, basically, like I said, the water like should go inside the muscle, so I could see why you would feel bigger and fuller, So that means it's definitely working. So you're having a good response to it.
Through the shoulders, I notice it through the shoulders. I've always
Okay.
pretty good shoulders, but they really. But then around my waist, a little bit of excess that I never have with with
Okay.
with the creatine, and that's keeping the same exact diet but taking the creatine. I
And
guess.
you're drinking enough water, right, Ralph?
What's that?
You're drinking enough water throughout the
Yeah,
day.
I make
Yeah.
sure I drink a ton of water with the
Okay.
creatine. I know that's important. And folks, if you do take creatine, drink that water. Drink that water.
Yeah.
Does it have any negative effects?
Well, if you don't drink the water, then you might get some cramping because the water is going to help it go into the muscle cells. So you definitely, well, what it does is it pulls the muscle into the water cells. So if you're not drinking enough water, you might feel dehydrated or get the cramping from it.
Did you ever hear of anybody saying creatine caused? Here's a few. Insomnia. This is one that I've gotten from people that I've talked to. Hair loss, which we're doing pretty good in that department. Did you ever hear of that?
No, I never heard of those, but I don't think it would cause any of the other
Go
stuff.
and see the negative and Google creatine. And when somebody told me those things, I said, "Come on, I didn't feel those things." And I
Right.
looked, sure enough, hair loss,
Really?
insomnia, and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's so strange. I guess every side effect has to be reported, and somebody somewhere probably didn't sleep a night or two. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know, but it never affected me that way. But it's just a major supplement that actually you could see working.
Yeah.
That's the thing with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It definitely
Now,
works.
yeah, no doubt about it. Do you work on body parts? For instance, if you have a weak body part, do you prioritize that body part?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned before, like training those muscle groups twice a week. My legs have always like lagged behind my upper body. That was always like my thighs in particular. My calves are pretty good, but my thighs always lag behind the rest of my body. So that's why I added that second leg workout. And then also my chest and triceps, I think, those could use a little more attention too. So that's why I added the second workout with them. But yeah, it's always a continuous process of trying to work on yourself.
What are you training for these days? What's in the future?
I'm gonna just promoting my business, so I wanted to shoot some videos and aiming for the over 40, over 50 market. So I want to get in as good a shape as possible, show people, show the example of what's possible as you get older.
So are you training everybody virtually or training people in the gym or both?
Mostly, I would say 90% virtually online, doing the online coaching and doing YouTube videos and obviously I got the podcast, but the podcast is more for the bodybuilding legends. So this is mostly on YouTube.
Who have you had on recently?
You just had Victor Terra on. Victor was a great bodybuilder from the 1980s. He was competing mostly in the AAU and the NABA Mr. Universe. Short guy, like 5'5", but great physique, really proportionate, a lot of thickness, really good symmetry. And could have really done well in the IFBB, but he went the other route and went with the AAU and the NABA. So he won the NABA Universe twice. He won the amateur and the pro, and he won his class at the Mr. America. And as a teenager, he was incredible. He won the Teenage Mr. America, and a week later, he won the Teenage Mr. USA. And some people feel like when he won that Teenage USA, he was better than the guy who won the Mr. USA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how good he was. So haven't heard much from him in a long time. So one of my other guests hooked me up with him, and I was able to do a 2-hour interview with him. So that was really interesting. And then I also interviewed an author, Nicholas Tesla, I think. Sorry if I'm forgetting his name, but he just wrote a really big book about Mike Mentzer, and it was like a novel. It was 700 pages, Ralph.
All about him?
About the life of Mike Mentzer, yeah. So
he's a fascinating guy. And
yeah,
not all good, but a lot of it good, but a little bit weird.
Yeah. Nicholas Kemmler, I just remembered his name.
Kemmler.
Yeah. He's from France, so he wrote the book in France, and it came out in 2019, 5 years ago, and they just translated it to English, so they just released the book out in America now. So that's when I did the interview with him. But yeah, he never heard of Mike Mentzer, and he had a personal trainer, and he was wearing a shirt to the gym one day that had Mentzer's face on it. And the trainer said, "That looks like Mike Mentzer." And he said, "Who's that?" And so his trainer told him all about Mike Mentzer, how he did this type of training, and he won Mr. America, Mr. Universe, and then he was in the Mr. Olympia with Arnold, and he took 5th place, and he never competed again. And then he had the downfall where he got involved with drugs, and then he died at 50 years old. So Nicholas saw this as a heroic rise to the top and then go to the bottom, a tragic story, really. And he always wanted to write a novel, but he couldn't think of like characters that he wanted to write about. So then once he started researching Mike Mentzer's life, he said, this is like a novel, so he wrote it like a novel. And he started from when Mentzer was a kid in Pennsylvania, and then all the way up to working for Weider, living in California, winning all these titles, being like the new bodybuilder that was going to take over the world. And then his downfall after the 80 Olympia, and then all the problems he had after that. So it was a pretty fascinating book. It was a page turner. I couldn't turn it down. I couldn't put it down. And he did his research. He did, I think it took him 2 years to write it. So he found all these old magazines, and he found every article that Mentzer wrote, talked to a lot of people that Mentzer knew, and he really got the inside scoop on them. And it's all about bodybuilding. So it was very interesting.
That's right down your alley. And that by the way, I saw a video right before he died, 2 days before he died. He was training some guy, Ray, his brother. They were sitting on. He's smoking a cigarette.
I saw that video too. Yeah.
He's going into the gym. He's good, and he passed away. And his brother, folks, this is Mike Mentzer. We're talking about Ray Mentzer, his brother. They both died, I think, a day apart.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, I think it was.
Yeah.
Did you ever see him in person?
Yeah, I saw him compete in the 1979 Mr. Olympia in Columbus, Ohio. He won the over 200-pound class and took second to Frank Zane. And then I also saw him, I went to the 1977 Mr. Olympia, and I saw him walking down the street in front of me.
Was he impressive in person?
Yeah, he was kind of short, but I saw his forearm sticking out from the back of him, So yeah, he wide, big shoulders.
Yeah, they said he was ridiculous the way he just in person. He was very impressive. Who was actually more impressive, Zane? When you saw that show, Zane or Mentzer? Forget who won. Who do you think was more impressive?
I thought Zane, when they got next to each other, was more impressive. That was probably Zane's best. He was a little bit bigger that year, but he was really ripped, and he just knew how to present himself. And Mentzer was posing really fast. The way it was judged back then was kind of messed up because they never compared Zane and Mentzer until the pose down at night. During the prejudging, they had 2 separate classes. So Zane won his class, Mentzer won his class, but they weren't compared until they finally went and did the pose down at night. And when they did, I think Mentzer was too excited. It was his first Olympia. He was posing too fast. He was kind of letting his stomach stick out a little bit. And then Zane just like did everything perfect. And, he's obviously already a 2-time winner. And then he won his 3rd time. So yeah, a lot of people criticize Zane. They think he's too skinny, and they don't know how he ever could have won a Mr. Olympia. But I saw all 3 of Zane's victories, and he was great on stage. On stage, he was just like a statue. I mean, he was really great symmetry. He was so cut. He was always more cut than everybody else in the show. And he wasn't a small guy, you know, like when he competed against these guys, he didn't look skinny. But that was 50 years ago. This was in the 1970s. So the guys weren't obviously as big as they are today. So the bodybuilders today that look at these monsters, they can't believe a guy who weighed 185 pounds could have won the Mr. Olympia, but they weren't there. You got to see him in person. And I was there and I thought he looked fantastic.
I would say about him, he didn't have the depth. Like from the
Yeah.
side, he
Yeah.
was flat. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
putting, you know, the way the judges would put it, but that's kind of the way he. But to me, he had the prettiest physique that I've ever seen. You know, I mean, if you want to go for aesthetics, Zane is the guy, and it's, you know, sometimes a guy gets the label to be the best at a certain aspect of the sport. In this case, this is true. I've never seen him in person, but actually I saw him on a video recently, and you know, the guy's 82 years old, but boy, does he know his stuff.
Yeah, yeah, he's sharp. You got to be ready when you do an interview with him, because he'll challenge you on things, and he's not as accommodating if you don't know what you're talking about.
I talked to him. I didn't have this Zoom connection at the time, but I talked to him on the telephone, on the radio one time.
Yeah, I did the same. Yeah.
He said about 15 minutes, I got to go. So when Zane's got to go, he's got to go, I guess. Right? And I remember Zane Heaven or Zane Haven.
Yeah.
With his wife and everything. All right. So how do people get in touch with you, John, if they want to train with you and become one of the many clients you have?
John Hansen Fitness is my website, so they could go there. And if they want to contact me by email, it's naturalolympia@gmail.com. So either way is good. And then on Instagram, I'm on John Hansen 1. And you can find me also on Facebook if you're on Facebook.
And you're going to be in the best shape of your life, just to show people, you know, if you're disciplined and you keep it going and you enjoy what you're doing, this is what you could look like. Is that really what your goal is?
Yeah, I don't identify as someone in their 60s, Ralph. I identify younger.
Neither do I, but you know, I was born in 1960, but we won't tell anybody. You know what's funny about the 60s? When I was 25, 30 years old, 64, which I am, you're a young pup still, 61. 64, I said to myself, I said when I was 30, 64, so old.
Yeah.
Never. But man, it gets there. It gets here just like this, John. And here we are, right?
But it was old back then. You know, now it's not as old.
Really old. Really old. I used to think about
I just saw a picture of Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid, and I guess they made a remake, and he was 62 in the remake, and they put him next to Mr. Miyagi, who was in the original, at 52.
Uh-huh.
And Ralph looks almost like he did as a kid, and Mr. Miyagi looked like he was 80, you know?
Yeah. What was his name again? Victor. What the heck was Mr. Miyagi's name? He was also Arnold on Happy Days.
Yeah, for sure.
For God's sakes, this guy was what was Arnold's name, honey? God, never mind. What, babe? Pat Morita.
Pat Morita, yeah, that's it.
Morita. Thanks, hon. Pat Morita. All right. Well, anyway, John, I appreciate it. We had to get that fact out there before that was very important, the most important thing.
Your wife nailed it. That was good.
You said Pat, and then it came to me.
Yeah.
John, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Ralph. Good talking to you.
Okay, man. Same here. Take it easy.
All right. You too.